what was described as a botched raid by the Cut officers barged into Breonna Taylor's home in Louisville, Kentucky, as she was laying asleep, and they fired multiple shots. Racial injustices within the judicial system have affected the lives of African Americans every day. I, myself, am the father of a half African American son. Knowing what I know now about racial injustices people of color face, I am very fearful to release my son into the society we live in. I try my hardest to be an advocate for all people of color, to help create a future where all black men and women feel safe. Racial injustice is an issue we've been facing for many decades now. This year alone, many innocent black lives were stolen by the hands of racial injustice. Thankfully, we are nearing a change. We as a society have determined that police brutality is a serious problem and has allowed questions to rise, such as institutionalized racism, systematic racism, and unwillingness of local prosecutors and federal law enforcement agencies to pursue allegations of brutality. We are far from a conclusion, but we are definitely closer to where we used to be. We have been facing racial injustices and seeking justice for decades. According to Harvard, they illustrate how news not only examine police brutality as a serious public problem, but foregrounded questions about the systematic factors that might create and sustain brutality, such as industrialized racism, a police subculture in which a us against them mentality can thrive, and the unwillingness of local prosecutors and federal law enforcement agencies to pursue allegations of brutality. This research from Harvard shows us that we have been seeking justice after many cases of police brutality and simply have not been getting it. This has been leading to riots decade after decade. This year alone, many unarmed, innocent people of color have died from police brutality, one of the most recent being Breonna Taylor. On March 13th, 26-year-old Breonna Taylor was shot while she was sleeping after her boyfriend fired shots at the LMPD officers after thinking they were intruders. The officers fired back with 32 shots, hitting Taylor 6 times, according to New York Amsterdam News. The officers arrived at the scene not wearing a uniform and without announcing themselves. Also, according to Time.com, the police had a narcotics search warrant to target Breonna Taylor's ex-boyfriend, Glover. Glover was already in custody at the time of the shooting. Lastly, also from New York Amsterdam News, Kenneth Walker, Breonna Taylor's current boyfriend, is a licensed gun owner and believed that the officers were intruders due to the no-knock search warrant. After the shots were fired and the police raided Breonna Taylor's apartment, no drugs were found. We have already clearly seen that the justice system has failed Breonna Taylor and us as a society. We live in fear because innocent minorities are being shot and killed every single day without any consequences. The initial police raid should have never happened the way it did. Despite the multiple protests, thousands of Twitter shares, and multiple petitions, Breonna Taylor was never granted the justice she deserved. The police officers did not announce themselves, approached the wrong home, and shot blindly. According to Christian Century, the police officers were never charged with murder. Hankinson, which was one of the officers, was charged with 3 counts of wanton endangerment for endangering a neighboring white family of 3 when his shots fired penetrated their apartment. This essentially means he was never charged with murder, and he was only charged for the shots that he didn't hit Breonna Taylor with. And then Breonna Taylor's neighbor's walls got justice before she has. We can see that this clearly from the death of Breonna Taylor. We must change our justice system and fight for equality for all. Racial injustices within the judicial system affect the lives of African Americans every single day. We need to do our best as young and able young people to make a change and better a future for all people. No man or woman should have to fear living in a world like this, especially in 2020.